Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're from and whatever time zone you're from. This is TGT Media, the Entertainment Industry Interview Podcast, where we interview the creative minds from the comic, film, music, and game publishing industries. And I'm your host, Kurt Sasso, and we are joined today by two amazingly talented people. But let me introduce my co-host first, because I want him to introduce our special guest of the morning, afternoon, evening. We are joined today, of course, all the way from beautiful Philippines at night in the time zone central of whatever. We are, of course, joined by Doc, of course, Carlo San Juan, Dr. Carlo San Juan from com. How are you doing today, Cal?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. And as you pointed out, it's 11 p.m. at night over here. We had a bit of confusion when it comes to the time zones and all that, but I still get confused about it with the whole daylight savings time thing, and because we don't have that over in our part of the world. And but anyway, I'd like to introduce our wonderful star for this episode. It's Astrid Johannsen from. I'd let her introduce the title of her comic, and it's quite lengthy.
Hello, I'm Astrid, and I draw a webcomic called Threads from the Blue Rock Tapestry, or Threads for short.
Which you can find it at eljohara.com/threads.
Yes.
And you know,
we'll probably have the spelling for that later, right?
It'll be up on the website.
Okay.
But tell us, exactly what is Threads of the Blue, or Threads from the Blue Tap? Threads. What is it all about?
What's it all about? Well, let's see. Somebody on my Twitter summed it up quite nicely. It's basically Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere meets the L Word. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of pretty succinct. I don't think I can do better than that. Parallel realities, one non-magical and one magical, and characters from the two universes are beginning to interact with one another. And I was inspired to do that. It sort of kind of accidentally turned into this story, because yes, I was inspired by Neil Gaiman's Neverwhere. I really liked the idea of traveling back and forth between the mundane world and the really crazy, cool, weird, magical world. But that wasn't the original plan of the webcomic at all. It was originally just going to be sort of an alternate history slice of life comic. And then it went off in this direction, and I'm like, okay, we'll go there and see what happens. Because I don't really plan this comic too far in advance. When I started it, it was basically kind of picking up the pieces of a previous couple of webcomics that I had started years earlier, and using the same characters in sort of the similar format. But since I didn't have a well-developed storyline other than sort of the loose threads, if you will, of story arcs in my head, I just sort of, I got the domain, I sat down and I started drawing comics. Didn't have a backlog or a buffer or anything like that. I'm just like, okay, boom, here's a comic. And then 2 days later, boom, here's another comic. And then 2 days later, boom, here's another comic. So for the first 7 months, I was updating 3 times a week. It was crazy.
Wow.
And then I got a day job, and I had to cut way back to just once a week. But I was still doing it, which made me very happy. I'll be going into my 3rd year of drawing this webcomic, coming up January 2nd.
Awesome.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Obviously when we get guests on the show, looking at the comic itself, looking at the character interactions and everything like that. Previously, you had another title for this here, which I unfortunately have listed on the site right now, and I believe it was called Lesbian Drama.
Absolutely True Tales of Lesbian Drama. Yep.
Oh, sorry,
I have a thing for long titles, obviously.
Perfectly fine. It's going to like blend over into 2 sentences on the website, but that's all right.
Yeah, it doesn't really agree very well with web formatting in CSS, so sorry about that.
It's okay. But why this genre itself? What draws you to draw this genre?
Well, we kind of work from experience, and while I don't really have experience universe hopping, I do have experience with queer culture, and so that plays really big into the story. Like you said, my webcomic used to be called Absolutely True Tales of Lesbian Drama, and I debated that title for a long time before I went with it and put it online 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. But it was always kind of floating in the back of my head, is this really a good idea? Am I going to like freak people out with this title? Because I kind of want people to read my story without going, oh, I don't want to read something obnoxious and dramatic, and because a lot of people aren't exactly into shows like The L Word or Queer as Folk or whatever. So I'm like, all right, why don't I switch it back to the very first original title that I went with when I was drawing this comic on paper back in 1998, and that was Threads from the Blue Rock Tapestry. So it's gone through a few iterations, but the characters have remained consistent, and the storyline has remained more or less consistent.
What about, especially in the queer culture, when we had many amazing creators from that culture and talented individuals, including yourself as well. But what challenges have you had to not only personally face, but also maybe creatively face when creating Threads?
From a technical standpoint, my biggest challenge is probably writing, because I don't really have a outline of what I'm doing, and I don't have a buffer or anything like that. I'm pretty much creating the story as I go, which on one hand is kind of freaky, like, holy crow, I don't know where I'm going. But because I don't know where I'm going, there's plenty of opportunities to have really excellent opportunities turn up. Like, for example, way back in the beginning, I think it was a 12 episode storyline kicked off the series, and then I got into the second arc, which is where everything just turned sideways for the storyline. Because I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. We have these two characters interacting with one another, but it's going to be really boring if they just go and do a thing. So oh, wait a minute. What if I do this? And I got the idea for, because I had just read Neverwhere and went, all right, we're going to totally do that. We're going to just steal this idea, because great artists steal, or so I'm told.
Appropriate.
And I had one of my characters go climb headfirst into a sewer hole and pop up on the other side in another world. And I did that transition from visually by going from vector illustration to drawing in Photoshop, so that you know that, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why are you drawing in a different style? It's like, oh, you're in a new universe. Oh, that's clever. Okay. So that's one challenge, sort of faking it until I make it. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but that's kind of how I live my life in general. So maybe that's not necessarily a challenge. Another big challenge isn't so much technical; it's more personal. But for years and years and years, I had to deal with seasonal depression, regular depression, and all that fun stuff, which made it challenging to just want to sit down and draw. Like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to lay on the bed and stare at the ceiling for the next 400 million hours, because I can't. I just can't. So motivating myself to create when my head is like was and continues to be challenging. But I look back at the 3 years that I've been doing this. I'm approaching 200 comics. I think the next one I'm doing is number 193. And the last time that I had a quote-unquote steady webcomicing gig, I only made it to 50 comics. So I think I'm doing all right.
Awesome. Doc, anything?
Yeah, I noticed that when your characters do travel into this alternate world, they're also able to take a form that that they choose to be, or that is their true inner self. I'm not entirely sure. And so, what is your thinking behind this this sort of twist in your story?
Well, some of the characters, when going from the mundane world to the magic world, do experience a shift in their ordinary appearance, and there is a reason behind that, and I guess that's kind of spoilery, but it's spoilery for like 5 years from now when I finally get to that point to write about it in the story. So that's one reason. It's a plot point that I haven't addressed yet. But not the alternate history, although that's big too. The parallel universe thing. Where did that come from? Was it just from that one story? I mean,
Neverwhere, or
from Neverwhere, yeah. Because honestly, while it is a magical universe, and there's elves and there's fairies and there's people with blue skin, green skin, and lots of different colors of the rainbow skin. There hasn't actually really been a whole lot of magic use in the comic.
Oh yeah.
So I suppose that's another spoilery thing. Be prepared for magic use.
You're not going to go all Harry Potter on us, are you?
No. I kind of like the idea of magic realism. I only just recently discovered this term, but apparently it's kind of nestled into urban fantasy where magic happens, but there's like a scientific understanding of it, and you can kind of dissect it, and it's like, oh yeah, well, it's perfectly logical why there's magic in this universe and not in another one. It's just kind of the way the fundamental laws of physics work here.
Just like rubbing two sticks together makes fire.
Exactly.
It just happens.
It just happens. Well, I mean, there's like one of my characters, Aziza. She's currently in Mexico right now, in Tenochtitlan, at the university studying magic. in the Department of Magical Sciences, which she initially scoffed at. I was like, "You have to be kidding! Magical sciences? Don't be ridiculous!" Because she's from the mundane universe, now in the magical universe, and trying to wrap her brain around this big shift in reality.
Just trying to think what else here. Now, with this type of comic here, I'm sure there's a general outline, a general plan you have. What about in terms of social media and promotion? How have you gone about making your comic more interactive or more socially available?
This could fall under whatever it was we were talking about earlier, challenges, yes. I have the only real web presence that I have for my comic, other than the website itself, which doesn't have comments turned on, is my Google Plus page. And right now there's like 700-ish people following that, but I don't really put a lot of stuff on that because I have honestly no idea what to put on there. Like, because I put all of my sneak preview stuff, like sketches for upcoming comics and random things, on just my main Google Plus page. Mm. And a lot of people interact with me there, or on my Twitter. So most of my comics interaction is just done through my own personal social media accounts. I've got one on Tumblr where I do some artwork and random sketches and reblog fun stuff that I like. On Twitter where I rant about all sorts of things. And on Google Plus where I've met some fantastic folks and all sorts of creative and scientific endeavors.
So then what interests you then about making comics and the science aspect of in your characters in your comic?
I've known that I wanted to draw comics since I was just a young kid when drawing on my mother's furniture. And then she introduced me to paper and I went, "Oh, this is cool, this is great." And then when I got a computer and started doing digital illustration, I knew what I would be doing for the rest of my life. I'm like, okay, this is where it is. You know, you've got your Wacom pen and tablet and everything to draw on digitally. I love it. So that's definitely my thing. And as for the science aspect, I consider myself a skeptic, so that angle of my own personality is going to creep out into my webcomic. Notably in, like I was talking about earlier, my character Aziza, where she was being very dismissive of magical sciences and all of that. But as the story progresses and we start to see how this magical universe works and how it relates and why there are connections, portals between the two universes, and things kind of open up and unfold and get explained, that'll give me opportunities to kind of go further into the science of my comic.
One of my favorite lines from your comic is actually 3 simple words. It says, "I need science," in like big bold letters. And but yeah, you've actually already explained why that is. It's more of a comment than a question. I don't really have a question.
Well, there's let's see. Let me drag up my archives real quick on my hard drive. A few places like that where characters are talking about that. Mm-hmm. And Aziza is one of them.
Hey, I believe it was her that I saw who said that.
Yeah, it's when she's in the cave in the Southwest. Da, 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 da. It's one of these.
Do you have any inspirations when it comes to your art style? Because it is quite characteristic, and that's what attracted me to your comic first.
When I was younger, my biggest influence was actually Disney movies. I really liked the animation style of like Aladdin and The Little Mermaid and movies in that era, and I like that more than say mainstream comics at the time. During the 1990s, the artwork in like superhero comics was kind of questionable. But
too much cross-hatching for you?
Way too much cross-hatching and the silly, putty, stretchy. Everybody was Mr. Fantastic in those comics. I was like, I can't get behind that. But actually, it was around that time that I discovered the magazine Heavy Metal and European comics and independent comics, the black and white stuff published by like Oni and Slave Labor Graphics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I went, oh, you mean comics don't have to be superheroes? and a whole new world opened up for me, and I knew that I could actually draw the comics that I wanted to draw.
Nice. I completely relate with you there. I was sort of getting frustrated with a lot of mainstream comics around the same time you were. And yeah, same magazine, I discovered Heavy Metal, and it just opened up this whole new universe to me. And it's actually what got me into fantasy comics in the first place, the Heavy Metal. And yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from when you're talking about that.
That's a good point. That's probably another one of my big influences as far as the genre that I'm writing in. Mm-hmm. The science fantasy of heavy metal.
Yeah.
Although there is nudity in my comic, it's not quite heavy metal. Like I have full frontal. Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, hello. Why? Well, oh, wow, goodness. Put some clothes on, man.
I just like the line, why am I naked? Lifeless bodies are heavy and difficult to clothe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's yeah, reanimating the dead, I guess, is a little more difficult than expected. Especially, those that are fashion conscious.
Yeah, that could also be it. It's like, well, I know Madeline really likes her clothes, so I won't pick out something for her. But of course, and this is only a spoiler for people who haven't read the comic, that's not actually Madeline, which is why she doesn't quite look the same as before. Well, that and the fact that my art style has improved in the year and a half that it's been since I last drew Madeline.
So then, with the amount of characters that you have, are you finding it difficult to intertwine storylines, or are you kind of just taking a character at a time and kind of fleshing out their history and their backgrounds and going from there?
A friend of mine commented about the number of characters that I have, kind of making a joke about it. It's like, yeah, I wanted to draw you some fan art, but I couldn't decide because of the bazillion characters that you have in your comic. I'm like, yeah, I know. And that was something that I was wondering about not too long ago, because as far as how to market my comic, because my comic doesn't really have a main character. It's an ensemble cast. So it's not like a lot of webcomics, when they're marketing, they have kind of a focal point character, and then supporting cast around that focal point character. Whereas mine is just sort of like there's a bunch of people, but there's no real star of the comic as a whole. You have to take it in chunks for each different storyline, and even in each different storyline, there's rarely one focal character. It's always 2 or 3 that are being addressed in the storyline. So it can be a bit daunting juggling all of these different characters, but I've been working with them long enough that I kind of have a better feeling of who they are, and it is something that I have to keep in mind when I'm writing something. I have to remember who I'm writing for, otherwise, they might do something out of character, and I can't have that. And it has happened a couple of times in my comic. I won't tell you where, but where the character has done something out of character. And I'm like, oh crap, I have to start paying attention to that now.
With everything that you've gone through in 3 years, if you were to go back in time and tell yourself, give yourself a few lessons or tips to make your life easier in the future, what would you say to yourself?
I know I wouldn't say plan ahead, because that would take all the fun out of it. But I probably would say draw more often, because I look back at my early comics, but I'm sure most comic artists and illustrators do this. They look at their earlier work and they go, oh God, that's just... So the more you draw, and the more you draw the same character over and over and over again, the better you get at it. And it's like, obviously that's a no-brainer, but it took me a while to kind of figure that one out. So it's like, draw all the time. That's kind of my suggestion to my younger self.
That seems to be a common theme, though. Every artist says, draw, or just draw something every day, no matter what it is, and that's how you'll hone your style.
Mm-hmm. And I recently was able to, well, yeah, I guess was able is the correct way of putting this, to quit my day job. Not because I'm getting money from my comic. My comic is actually totally ad-free, and so there's no real income coming from that, but there's also no banner ads, there's no little flashy lights, there's no little blinky things, there's no little pop-ups, because that's important to me. I wanted my comic to just be my comic. You go there, you read my comic, and I got my threads quota for today. But I am also doing illustration, whatever it takes to keep drawing. And since I quit the day job, I'm drawing constantly. It's great. I love it. And 3 years ago, it was kind of weird to wrap my brain around the idea that I would be drawing all the time, even though when I was a kid, I knew that's what I wanted to do. It's like, yeah, I want to grow up and I want to draw. Now I'm an adult, and I'm drawing. And I'm like, am I missing something? There should be this should be harder. But no, I'm doing what I want to do.
Now, did you go to school for drawing, or did you just?
No, I went to the University of Oregon, majored in religious studies, and studied Greek, Latin, and Arabic, and worked at the outdoor program. So I really didn't do anything artistic at the university. Everything that I've done is just on my own, which some people go, wow, that's cool, and other people go, wait, you mean you didn't go to school for art? What? Okay. So what do you use your education for? Like, well, learning cool stuff and meeting cool people, right?
Similar to what I'm going through with visual arts and communication media and film.
Yes, it was just a super expensive social networking service.
Tax dollars at work. I mean, well then, you've gone through a lot of iterations of the comic. You have no banner ads. You have a constant day job in terms of being an illustrator, self-promotion, and all of that. Why the reason for no banner ads, though?
Probably just crazy idealism. I don't want banner ads on my site, and I'd rather have my comic learned about through word of mouth or through fan art that I do for other creators, or from fans who just appreciate the comic. Because I feel that if my work is good enough, then it can stand alone without commercials. But like I said, maybe that's just misguided idealism.
What about the no comment aspect, though?
Oh, mostly I just don't like the visual clutter. I want the comic site to be about the comic itself, and there really hasn't been a lot of demand or interest, it seems, in discussion, but that could be because there's no place to discuss. I don't know. It's kind of either or. Nobody's really approached me on the interwebs about it, asking me questions on my Twitter or my G+. Maybe they just don't know they can do that, or they're nervous about talking to a comic artist. No, that can't be it. That's silly. We're comic artists. We're like, we're nervous about meeting other people. Like, wait, you mean we have to go outside and do things? No. But yeah, I suppose maybe that could be one thing that I use my Google Plus fan page for, is dialogue about the comic. I don't know. I guess that's another reason why I don't advertise, is because I don't actually know how. I'm like, I'm not going to do it because I'm like, no.
I don't know. Go ahead, Doc.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
All right. Going back to your website, I actually do appreciate that you have a very clean layout to your site. I know that for a fact that in the previous discussion you did mention that it was on purpose. You do like a whole clean, clean look to your site. Yeah. But what I'm more impressed about is how well you code, actually, because I know you're sort of a coding freak is not the word. Coding junkie. You're into it.
I'm definitely into it. I learned BASIC when I was 10, and I could have gone into computer science, but really didn't want to, because my interest in computers was more illustration oriented rather than programming oriented. But that programming itch is still in me. So when I discovered WordPress, I don't know when that was, probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I went, oh, this is fantastic. I love this, because I had already been dabbling in PHP for a while, and had built my own content management system, because that's how big a nerd I am. But then when I found WordPress and saw that there was this whole organization and group of people that were doing that coding for me, I'm like, oh, sweet. Okay, I'll just use that, customize the template, and presto, I have a website. So I know a lot of webcomics artists use Comic Press, which is a separate plugin that you add to WordPress. And I'm like, no, I don't like that. It's not minimalist enough. It's not clean and streamlined enough. I need less. So I coded my own website, and yeah, don't need Comic Press because it's too cumbersome for my needs. And yeah, design my own website.
But yeah, because that's sort of a requirement for, I'd say, a webcomic, a serious webcomic creator to be able to visualize the site and actually produce it and make sure it works and all that. And from the times that I do visit your site, I don't think I've ever encountered any problem whatsoever. Probably because it was very clean. There was no clutter, no stray code going in anywhere. Sadly, I don't have that. I don't have your skill. But that's why I think it's just a wonderful aspect of the whole you, is that you're a webcomic artist. You draw well, you write well, and you can code. So you're a complete package.
Definitely one of the things that I was going for. It's kind of self-sustaining. But yeah, as far as the design of the website, I really just wanted the comic to be the first thing that people saw when they went to the website. Not a big banner title image, not sidebar ads, not whatever my last tweet was, or anything like that. You go, there's the name of my comic, there's who it's by, and boom, there's the comic. And then navigation below, and then all the fluffy stuff below that. I've got links to the comics that I read on the left, links within my own website on the right, and then whatever it is I'm blathering about at the moment in the middle. And I'm like,
all the stuff that
what else do you need?
All the stuff that you removed from your site went to my site. all the stuff that I have so much clutter on my site that I have to clean up.
I have been asked by a couple other artists to design websites for them, and haven't yet, because people are like, "How much do you charge?" And then I tell them, and they're like, "Oh, okay, well, I'll get back to you." I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I'll be here, and I'd love to do your website. As long as it's a webcomics website.
Yeah, I have to reorganize my website. I need to take out a lot of stuff in general and clean it up a lot more than it is. So it's on the list.
Well, one of my big things in life in general is minimalism, and that actually comes through in the comic, although it might not be obvious. Taking things out that aren't necessary and only using what is needed is a big thing for me, just in all aspects of life. One of my ambitions is to kind of sell everything I own, get myself one of those ModBook Pros, which is basically a Cintiq tablet and a MacBook Pro pressed together into one device. And I'm like, oh, covet. I so want one of those. To have one of those and get on my bike and ride my bike around the world and be a traveling illustrator. drawing comics as I go. That's my ambition. That's what I want to do. Light and simple and easy, and see the world and draw things at the same time. I'm like, oh, what could be more awesome than that?
Is there I know you've been hinting at spoilers or anything like that. Before I get to my question, Doc, anything else you want to ask Astrid? I think he's delayed a bit.
Nothing?
Yeah, I think he's got the garbleness going
Uh-oh.
there.
Yeah, I couldn't understand. Were you talking to me?
Yeah, sorry, Doc. I was asking if you had any other questions for Astrid.
Oh, all right. A bit earlier, you mentioned that you did change the title. Yeah, at least for me, when I was introduced to your comic, it was the previous title, and now it's Threads. And I sort of got the hint that you're trying to expand your audience. Is that what you were trying to do?
Yeah, that was kind of the motivation behind the title change. I wanted to expand it so that because I know that the comic itself, while it has queer characters, a huge diverse cast of characters, because diversity is important to me. I didn't want people to see the title and go, oh, well, this comic is only about this one thing. So I went back to my original title of the comic, which I think suits the overall vibe of the story really well. It's a bunch, since I have such a diverse cast and there's no real focal point, they're all just their own threads, their own characters weaving this tapestry called my comic, Threads from the Blue Rock Tapestry, and the blue rock being Earth. That's from Carl Sagan, you know, blue dot, although it's bigger.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about or that you haven't brought up that you'd like to let your readers and our listeners and watchers know about?
Well, I recently finished my first mini comic, which, yeah, I sold that at Alternative Press Expo back in October. And you can actually buy copies on my website. But it's the first of hopefully many future mini comics in which I expand on the main storyline of my webcomic in order to kind of fill the gaps between storylines. And the first one goes way back to the beginning, when my two characters, Joe and Aziza, go to the drag show, and Joe bumps into who we eventually find out is Gabrielle, and that's what that comic is about. And so I have these comics that when I finish them, they're initially only available at shows, but then once I go to a show and offer it, then I offer it online for sale. So I've got another one coming. It's in progress. I started it during 24-Hour Comic Day, and so did not finish during that time. But you can read the entire comic at my website, the 24-Hour Comic that I did, which takes place in the same continuity, although it uses completely new characters who... completely new characters. Yeah, oh great, more characters for the cast. But they're completely independent from the characters that we know in the main storyline. But it does expand on kind of situation between why these two universes are connected to each other. And I wanted to have that ready for the show that I'm going to at the end of this month. I'm going to be down in Burbank, California for BentCon on November 30th and December 1st and 2nd. So you can buy a copy of my mini comic there. You can buy a copy of my extremely limited edition book, which collects the first 91 episodes of my comic and also features all of my original comics that led up to my current webcomic. And this will be the only place that you can get this this book, or my old comics is in this book. And the book is not available online because I'm just a brat. So yeah, if you want to see my old stuff and look at it and go, wow, look at what you drew, and I'll be like, yes, I know, I'm sorry, then yeah, come and see me in Burbank. So there's that. Is there anything else? I do illustration. I've been drawing avatars for people for $10 during November because I'm awesome like that. I'm also offering commissions because I really love illustration, and some people dig my my vectors. And yeah, I think that's kind of my thing for art. And then there's the website stuff too.
We didn't get to talk about your conventions that you go to either, because that's usually a question I ask.
Right now, the only regular conventions that I've done for the past couple of years are Alternative Press Expo in San Francisco and Stumptown Comics Fest in Portland. Because Stumptown is in my backyard. I can just take a 2-hour train ride and boom, I'm in Portland. And actually, some of my Portland friends, they're like, hey, we totally invite you out for a beer, but you live all the way in Eugene. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Eugene is not the place to live if you want to draw comics in Oregon. You have to go to Portland, but I don't want to live in Portland because I don't want to live in Portland. And so I'm down here in little city of naked hippies by myself drawing comics. Actually, no, I'm not. Well, okay, I don't actually talk to these people, but I know there are at least 2 big name people who draw comics, technically 3, who live in Eugene. Jan Elliott lives in Eugene. She draws Stone Soup, and the Allreds, Mike and Laura Allred, live in Eugene. And I met them actually up in Portland in April, and discovered, oh, you're like a big name, okay? Because I just went up to them and saying, hey, I heard you live in Eugene. What's a good comic shop? And they're like, you're here to talk about, oh, okay, sure. You're here to talk about Eugene, whatever. So yeah, and this new convention that I'm going to is BentCon, and that's I don't know what this is, honestly, because this will be my first time there. But I guess it's a convention focusing on queer media. So that'll be television, film, and print, comics, literature, whatever. And so I'm like, yeah, I fit under that umbrella, so I'll go check that out.
Awesome.
But that's all West Coast stuff. I've never done anything not West Coast because I don't own a car and I don't fly, so it's not really practical for me to go over there. But maybe when I travel, I'll do some other conventions.
Well, there's a ton of conventions pretty much across Canada and the United States. I guess you could always travel a little farther north and hit BC.
That would be cool. I would like to do that. It's been a while since I've been to British Columbia. Last time I was there, I think, was the early 90s.
I think a little's changed.
Yeah, I imagine.
Oh, awesome. Well, Astrid, and of course, Carlo, it's a pleasure both having you on the show here. Of course, you can go to Astrid's website, which is ellejahara.com, and that'll be on the main TGT site as well, linking back. Of course, the comic is ellejahara/threads, a great comic as well. And of course, Doc is calluscomics.com, and Doc, we can't let you go without at least saying, what's happening with Callus Comics. A little teaser for your fans and listeners as well.
Yeah.
or not. I mean, we could leave it as it.
No, well, yeah. So I'm really spending the time now to finish off the current storyline, which is Heartstring Pizzicato, and with all that's been happening in my life, yeah, it's been pretty tough to find time to make comics, but I'm getting there. We're in the final acts of the storyline, and then I can go back to doing Gag Days. Recently, now I do have a need to make new Gag Days because recently I was accepted in a major newspaper in my country.
Awesome.
Nice.
And and yeah, that would be the Manila Bulletin, by the way. It's the newspaper that has the largest distribution in the country, so it's a big deal for me. So I do need to start making Gag-A-Day comics, and so I'm really trying to finish off this current storyline. And as the usual stuff, you can find my comic at calluscomics.com, and you can find me at twitter.com/calluscomics. I've recently been growing quite fond of the Facebook page, which is at facebook.com/calluscomics, and I'm planning to get my Google Plus page active again once I find the time to do all this stuff. And what else am I doing? If you're in the Philippines, buy the Manila Bulletin.
Support your local webcomic creator, or now cartoonist, I can call you.
No matter where in the world you are, support local comics.
Exactly, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, support local comics.
I'm glad that you both came on the show. It's a true pleasure having you both on as well. I'd love to have you both on, as always, Doc. We'll get you on as a co-host for next year. And of course, Astrid, I'd love to have you on as well, because this would be wonderful to get you on as a co-host too, because usually that's the next progression if I don't have you on for another show or another book.
Cool.
That ends this episode of TGT Media. This is episode 279. You can, of course, see this on our YouTube website of youtube.com/TGT Media. You can find this, of course, on the TGTmedia.com website. And we're going to have, I believe, Scott Story and Benita Story on the show from Johnny Saturn, I believe, next weekend. We'll try to get them on. It may not be a video show, but it'll be an audio for sure. As for December, we're only having 2 shows as well. A holiday movie, and of course Tess Cooper from Little Forkers. Then I'll be doing exams. So the 2013 schedule is available. You can go to the schedule interview or suggest interview section of the TGT Media website. Sign up, fill out the quick form. You'll be on definitely for the 2013 season. As for the show itself, it's still going to be a short format show, and if I haven't said this before, thank you everyone for actually coming and downloading the episode and visiting the various comic creators that we have on the show, and other people that are on the show as well too, because without your downloads, without your support in any way, shape, or form, this show wouldn't be happening. So thank you all once again. And Astrid and Carlo, thanks again, and I hope you both have a wonderful day and night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.